You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
In today's podcast, I'd like to discuss the 10 biggest dating red flags. Thank you for tuning in to the Ashley Burgess podcast. Many of you may be dating on different various dating sites and putting yourself out there. And so knowing these red flags can safeguard you and also keep you from wasting a lot of time. Because I know many of you are looking for that relationship. You're looking for that spark. You're looking for that connection and, wanting to find the right relationship that works for you. So let's start talking about these dating red flags that we need to be aware of. A lot of times with these red flags, we've overlooked them. We didn't see them. We kind of buried them under the rug. Oh, we just thought, things will get better. But these are very important to think about. They're very important to see because we can actually do ourselves a great service by seeing these and moving on to find someone that will actually be healthier for us to be in a long-term relationship. The first one is what we call love bombing. And many of you are very familiar with the term. Some of you are not. And love bombing is just a lot of just a lot of attention, a lot of gifts, a lot of overly doting on somebody. It almost feels like you have that perfect relationship. If you're not really aware of what love bombing is, and you feel like you haven't gotten a lot of attention in past relationships, you can fall for love bombing quite easily because that person's constantly listening to you, constantly listening to what you have to say. They think you're amazing. They talk about how great you are. They put you on this pedestal. I mean, it's a great feeling. And if you haven't had a lot of attention or positive attention, you can get sucked into this. Love bombing is also gift giving sometimes. Somebody might be giving you a lot of gifts or taking you on a lot of trips, like literally a whirlwind romance fits into the categorization of love bombing. It's very fast paced. It's very quick romance. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of connection. There's all this feeling. There's a lot of really putting you on that pedestal. And so I need you to be aware of that because the problem with love bombing, as anything this excessive, it's going to stop, right? It's going to stop. And eventually, like I talk about, you're going to get crumbs. Over time, the love bombing stops. Once they've gotten inundated in your life, once you're latched to this person, all of a sudden the love bombing's over and you're getting crumbs. You're receiving small bits of attention, very different than what you were receiving before. And many of us fall into the trap of thinking, well, it's something I've done. It's because something I've done or something I did wrong has stopped me from getting this attention that I had before. But it's not that at all. It has nothing to really do with you. This is either a learned response or just kind of just part of a way of life to get into someone's life. And so you don't realize this is how that person acts in every relationship. Unfortunately, it's not a special situation. It's how they act in every relationship. And eventually over time, they begin to pull back and they become who they really are. And who they've always been. It was just the love bombing in the beginning was not true. That was a false narrative. It was a false creation, right? And it's not until later on with the crumbs and the pulling back and the discrediting and what they said was cute before is not cute anymore. And what they used to think was amazing with you, they criticize and they make fun of and they judge you becomes the new crumbs. And then the attention becomes smaller and smaller, less and less. And you keep trying to grapple for that attention when you don't realize that it's not really within your realm. It's not like you can change that. They've just gotten what they wanted. They've gotten you where they want you. And now they're going to give you very little. And so it's something to really think about because if you're getting a ton of attention and it seems very different from past relationships, something to be aware of and not to fall into, oh, this is like a Hollywood romance. Look at it with deep honesty. Other aspect that I want to talk about is the future planning. And a lot of these relationships that we need to be aware of, the other person is constantly talking about the future, what can be, what will be. Let's have children, let's get married, let's live here, let's have this vehicle, let's do that, all these things. And they're preparing for this future. They're planning this future, this long-term relationship. And we're only in a few dates, maybe even just maybe a month or two, and we're already planning the entire life together out. And those are always red flags too, because I consider this some of it future faking. That's a term that's used a lot, future faking, where we're planning this future, but it's not necessarily going to come to pass. And so you're already kind of putting your eggs in this basket of this relationship, believing this is going to happen, when in reality, this might not happen. A lot of times with people that have a lot of narcissistic tendencies, a lot of self-centeredness, even some cluster B dynamic outside of narcissism, the tendency of doing this future faking. And unfortunately, no, it's across the board. So this is what they do in every relationship. They're very quick because they put you on a pedestal. Sometimes if somebody's dealing with BPD tendencies, they see you as the best person alive. You're the favorite person. You've done no wrong. So they are fantasizing in this relationship, but eventually, as we are human, we do something that upsets them and they pull you off that pedestal. So being really aware of these future promises, this long term kind of concept of what's going to happen here, taking it day by day is so much better. Not making these like plans, not thinking so far down in the future, but being honest and just taking it day by day and seeing that person and understanding who they really are in a day by day setting. I also think sometimes too is that we have to look at the person and understand their past. And sometimes it's hard to get answers about people's past. It's hard to get just even simple answers about family dynamic, past relationships, past marriages, those types of things. And so being able to really understand where someone's coming from needs to, the only way really to get that is to have honesty and for everybody to come to the table and be honest. And I found that a lot of times some people are not honest about the situation. They're not honest about their past. They're not honest about their past relationships. And understanding that. And so seeing if somebody really is being honest, seeing if somebody has had the challenging conversations with you or talked about things that's not really, all amazing or unicorns or rainbows. Even some really challenging conversations is very helpful when you're looking at getting into a relationship with somebody because you realize that they actually can be honest. They can be honest. And honesty is so important. And I think nowadays in our social media lifestyles where we're looking at the images of people and they're putting the images that they want to show out is one thing, but I don't want to get in a relationship with somebody like that. I want to be in a relationship with somebody that's honest, that talks about their honest past, that's able to do that. But I also want to flip the script on this too. I want you to be aware of if you're dealing with somebody that is love bombing you and you are telling them everything about your past, please be careful. Okay? This is a big red flag because a lot of times what happens is they put you on this pedestal. You feel so good about it. They ask you all these questions. You tell them the truth about past relationships, past marriages, whatever. Now they have this data bank of everything about you, and they can use this later on. So when the love bombing ends, this facade ends, right? This created narrative ends. Now they have all this blackmail information on you, anything that they can use, anything they can judge you with. And that's really scary because when you're getting all that attention and somebody thinks you're like the cat's meow, you automatically assume that this is going to last forever. You don't realize that they're going to use those things against you. So really watch yourself and the communication and the stuff that you talk about, especially when it comes to like kind of some deep things that you haven't shared with other people. I don't think I'd be sharing it in the beginning of any relationship. I think that people over time, you can begin to trust people more and more. And over that trust, you're able to speak your truth or talk about your emotions or feelings. But I think in a very early relationship, I think it's too early. I think the first 6 months is way too early to open up about really deep things about your life. And we have to be prepared because if we're dealing with a narcissist, a malignant narcissist, a covert narcissist that's using love bombing techniques to get your attention, this is very scary because once they get their hands on this information, they will use it for ever ammunition. And I coined that phrase, I would say like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe eight, forever ammunition. And what that means is they have these things on you and they use it against you for the rest of the relationship, for the rest of your life. So if you're married to them and you stay forever, this will be something that comes up every single argument, every single fight. You can never get away from forever ammunition. It will always be. They will always go back to their well of the things that you told them in confidence to use against you later on, to find fault in you, to criticize you, and to ultimately basically find you as the blame component in any sort of relationship issue. Because what happens with these people is they are always the victim. They're always the one that was trying really hard, that was doing all these things, and you become the bad person. So they use these things against you later on. And in the beginning, you thought you just had this person that really cared about you and wanted to talk to you and wanted to hear about your feelings. And you're like, wow, I can really open up. And I'm sorry to tell you, there are people out there that you can, but they have to prove over the test of time. Okay. And it can't be this extreme love bombing. We have to see through it. So we have to put the ego aside. Like, oh, I finally found somebody. I know they're giving me the attention I deserve. Be honest with yourself. Get honest with yourself. People only give you so much attention. Okay. If somebody's giving you overt amount of attention, you really need to think about why that is. You really need to be honest with yourself. And you just see through the games, see through the manipulation, and understand why that is. And sometimes it takes us to get our ego out of it and realize, okay, Hollywood is Hollywood. It's fictitious. It's just fictitious stuff. There are no relationships like these Hollywood love affairs. Those don't exist. Or it's not true. And so to try to, oh, this is like Pretty Woman. This is like exactly like that. Okay, bad concept, bad film, not reality. We have to be aware of certain situations. So that's a very big thing to remember. Also, questionable lifestyles. And this goes into that Pretty Woman concept that I want to talk about. Many of you, and I've even had clients where you end up meeting an escort, a stripper, and you believe that you can sweep them off their feet and you can help them change their lifestyle and get them on the straight and narrow. And, oh, it's this beautiful love romantic, film concept where, guy meets, stripper that actually moonlights as, escort. And, we had this lifestyle. Next thing you know, she gets out of escorting and she becomes my wife and has my children. It's the most amazing love affair. It reminds you of Pretty Woman. It's so great. Oh my gosh. Not real. Okay, not real. And that whole savior thing, we have to be careful. So if you're dating someone and you found yourself in this savior complex where you're trying to save them or take care of them, this is a red flag for you to realize that this is part of your issue here. And so all of us need to see the red flags on both sides, whether it's them projecting or manipulating or love bombing or us trying to jump in and be, as people call it, Captain Save-A-Ho or what have you, where we feel like we have to save this person. Because relationships are challenging enough, much less trying to take somebody out of this type of career path. Also, remember, a lot of people that are in this career path might not have a lot of respect for the opposite sex as well. I mean, because a lot of times they got into this career path because of abuse from an opposite sex family member or parent. And so we need to be aware of those types of things. Also, strings attached relationships are very important to realize. So if somebody needs something from you, they need something from you. You need to really think about that. Do they need this from me or are they in love with me? And usually, if they need something, that might not mean that they're in love with you. You might be a means to an end. And so, again, we have to let go of the ego and see truth in situations. And not everybody that needs something is not in love with you, but we have to look at the fact that relationships are challenging enough. We need to let go of relationships that are not genuine, they're not truthful, and also let go of our ego in these situations to realize, okay, because if somebody doesn't need you for anything, they don't really need you for anything at all. That's great. That means they actually care about you. Okay, they actually care about you and they like you being around. And that's where I get my clients to get to. My clients, we get there where we don't need anybody. We don't have any like issues of loneliness or fear or any of that. We actually are feeling really good in our own skin. And so when we meet somebody, when I work with my clients, when they meet somebody, it's because they want them in their life. They don't need them in their life. And that's a big difference. So be aware if somebody has nothing to lose and they need everything and they don't have anything. I mean, it's nice to help people, but again, you're kind of setting yourself up as a savior who is going to eventually get hurt because this person is probably seeing either the safety, the security, the financial, the citizenship, whatever that is that they are needing. They're seeing that, and you are a means to the end. And they might not step on your head to get to the next level, but some of them might. Also, another indication that I find is a major red flag is someone that has very little friends. So, or no friends, really no friends. And it's not that we don't, I know that friendships take a long time to cultivate and it can be challenging, but if someone doesn't have really anybody they can call on, sometimes that can mean that they burn out everybody else in their group, you know. And so we have to be aware of that because I think sometimes you may feel sorry or feel bad for them, and so you start being everything to them. And remember, in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, just like in a friendship, just like in a partnership in a business, right? You can't be everything to that person. There are roles. There are different persons for different situations. For example, you know, I'm married. I don't go to my husband for every conversation. I have friends. I have outside resources. I have people I talk to. I have people I talk to about various different things. I don't put all of my stuff on one person and assume that that person's going to be there for everything. That is a misnomer about marriage. That is the reason why a lot of people get divorced because they say, well, they don't want to hear about my work or they don't want to give me attention about this or they don't do this or that. Well, they might not be interested at all in that. Now, I agree that if you are married to somebody, you should care enough about their well-being, but you might not want to hear everything about their work or whatever, or that you might not even have the spiritual agreement with them. Like you might have different spiritual or religious concepts. You might have different ideas about what's going on in our world. You might be more out of the box, you know what I'm saying? So it might be hard to share with somebody that doesn't really want to see that type of concept. So you have to have outside people to facilitate connection and having that conversation that might not involve your spouse, your significant other, you know, your wife, your husband, that sort of thing. But if somebody doesn't have any outlet and they're looking to you for everything, that is a major red flag. And that's also going to be very challenging because that person is going to probably become very jealous of your time, very jealous of the people you talk to, very jealous of the time that you're on the phone, very jealous of your work, very jealous of anybody else in your life. They will try to get rid of anybody else in your life in an effort to keep you only to themselves. Now, that's a big red flag too. So if somebody's already overly getting jealous and you just started dating, and I'm talking, I mean, like jealousy is it's tough. I mean, you know, we've all felt it, but many of us have worked to let go of that. But if somebody is super jealous and very controlling, this is a big red flag. Or if they're automatically thinking the negative about you already, this is not good. That means that they have been burned, they've been hurt, they have not dealt with their baggage, they have not dealt with their past. They're putting this past stuff onto you. Now remember that. So, you know, I've had several clients recently who have been in relationships, and at the beginning it started off okay. But over time, that other person was making comments about how they reminded them of their ex, or this is something my ex would do, or my narcissistic ex would do that. And, you know, my clients, I mean, we all have a few tendencies here and there, but, you know, I don't have any true freaking solid narcissistic clients to say, oh, this is that. These people were projecting on them because they hadn't worked on their own baggage from their past marriage. Now we have to be careful. So if somebody starts projecting on us early on, that's a big warning sign because that means that they're not self aware. Bingo, not self aware. They're so unself aware that they believe you are the problem, not them. They try to push that onto you and they keep doing it because they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. But then they lose so much sight that they believe that you're responsible for everything, condemning you for things. And these are the things you got to be being aware of because sometimes this can start as early as 6 months in. It can even start before that. We have to see what somebody's going to do. And the only way to see what somebody's going to do is consistency and time. Consistency and time. Over a consistent period of time, putting people in different situations, will we see the truth? Two, watching it and being aware of it and not sweeping it under the rug. If somebody says something or does something, instead of being like, oh, they had a bad day or what, I mean, I'm not talking about every single thing that's said, but I'm saying when somebody is projecting or finding fault in you, especially very early on, that's a red flag. If it comes down to you being the reason for everything, you're the problem, you're the issue, that's a red flag too. And then I need you to look at how much are they contributing to the relationship and what are they contributing to the relationship? How much are they actually contributing to this relationship? How much? How much are they actually contributing? Is there an equality here or is there an inequality here? And in the beginning, if there's love bombing going on, you're not going to see that because they're going to be giving a lot and giving you a lot of attention. And that's going to feel really good. But you're not going to realize that this is kind of a front that's about to go away once they get really nestled in to where they're going to be in your life. They get super nestled in, super involved. And next thing you know, you just love this and you're rolling all over this attention. And eventually that starts going away and you become addicted to it like drugs. You're like, it's like crack cocaine. You would become addicted to it. And then what they do is they just dull you off a little bit, pull it back, pull it back. And then you're going through withdrawals. And then the sex starts being a currency as well, right? So the sex was all the time. And I remember a client of mine told me, he's like, I could have sex with her anytime I wanted to. I mean, it was amazing. She would literally cook naked. She would cook naked or she would wear lingerie and cook for me and all this stuff. And this was amazing. I was like, oh my God, I found the woman of my dreams. She cooks for me. I come home. She's in, lingerie and all this stuff. And then she wants to have sex. And then eventually, guess what? That dries up. Oh, I'm not in the mood. I don't want to do that. I'm not in the mood. I don't feel good. Da, da, da. Oh, you got to take a shower. Da, da, da. All these things are going on. So I want you to think about that because the beginning is so great because you get really inundated and you're telling this person all your secrets, right? Be careful. And I'm not saying that we can't have good dates. I'm not saying we can't meet the right person. We can, but we don't want to get straddled and problematic and set up with these people that are going to suck the life right out of us. Another indication that I find interesting is somebody that doesn't speak about their family at all, somebody that doesn't speak about their parents at all or their upbringing at all. If you ever ask about it, they downplay it, speak very little about it, change the subject. These are major red flags. And it's interesting because I had a family member recently going through a divorce, and we were talking about it. And I said, did that person ever bring up their mother or father? Did they ever talk? And they go, well, their mother and father were dead before we met. And I go, oh, yeah, that's fine. But you talk about your parents all the time, and they're dead. I go, but did she bring up her parents? No, not at all. I go, did you not see that as a red flag at all? That somebody never brought up the person that raised them or gave birth to them? Isn't that kind of strange? That means there's a lot of issues there, like a lot of issues there. Okay. And I need you to think about this because when there's a lot of issues there and they're not willing to talk about it, those issues will become your issues, but you won't even realize it because they're going to be fighting you all the time. But they're actually fighting you because you're in the room, but they're fighting them still. They're fighting their parents still. They're fighting their upbringing still. And guess what? You get to get the brunt of it. So I need you to be aware. Ask the questions. If they're being weird with you, if they're like shutting you down, don't want to talk about it. They're shutting you down. Don't want to talk about their parents. Don't want to talk about their sisters, brothers, family dynamic. This is red flags flying like communist China. You are at a big walk-up mall in communist China, and there's 150,000 red flags flying. Okay. I need you to understand what you're dealing with because this isn't somebody just not talking about it. This is somebody that directly does not want to speak about this, has not dealt with it, is either processing, not processing, what have you. These are major red flags. They don't have to love their parents. They don't have to love their siblings. But you know what? When there is no talk about it or they avoid talk or they won't even answer a question, this is something that you need to be aware of because this will come to haunt you in any relationship you have with them because they will take it out on you and you'll be the jackass. Another thing that I find interesting is when people talk down to other people that they think are lesser than them. And I want you to think about that. Nobody's lesser than you. I don't care what their title is. I don't care about how much money they have. Like, this is all a game anyway. Money is just funny money. This is all funny money that was printed. This is all funny money. Yes, it was backed by the gold standard at one point in time. We were supposed to see that Fort Knox deal, right? Remember that when Elon Musk was going to show us Fort Knox, but that never happened on TV. But anyway, let's get back to relationships, right? So It's interesting because when somebody treats you really poorly, right? And when they treat people poorly and you see them and they're treating you great, you are just the golden child that never did anything wrong. But there you are, you take them out to a restaurant or they take you out to a restaurant and she or he or whoever is like talking down to the wait staff, talking down to the bus boy, talking down to the bar back, talking down to the bar, whatever it is. I need you to be, and there's times when people are just rude, right? And somebody, you're not the nicest person because they're rude to you to begin with. Doesn't You don't want to always do that, but yeah, I get that. But when somebody's rude, talking down to people, and that's what they're doing, this is a big red flag because this person actually thinks that they're better than other people. This is a very narcissistic red flag. It's a very cluster B dynamic red flag. Could be very sociopathic, very non-empathetic type person. We need to be aware of that because it's going to happen to you too. Just because you're on the pedestal right now doesn't mean that the pedestal will not be thrown down and you will be thrown down on the ground because they will do the same thing to you too. Okay. And this is a big thing. I find it interesting. It's like I remember there was a while back, years and years ago, I spent time with this girl that was a friend of mine, and we would hang out at her house, but she would talk about every single woman, every single person I knew. She would talk about, and very negatively. It was very horrible. And I remember at first I thought, oh, we're good friends and all this stuff, and I would just listen. But then I realized, that's gonna be me at some point. She's gonna be talking about me, and I kind of just separated myself from that because I realized that when somebody shows their truth like that and they do that across the board, for me to think that she's not going to talk about me is really egotistical and self-centered to me. And it also is like it's just an ego. It's like, oh, if she talks about everybody, why am I immune? And the thing is, if they put down other people, why would you be immune? And this is something I really want you to think about because this is a big deal. Now, the last two, you're thinking about hating on your ex. And I know that many of you out there had some tough, toxic past relationships. There's some pain and suffering, and my clients are working through their toxicity, working through their unhealthy relationships. We're processing it. We're getting over it. We're moving on. We've already processed it. We were in a different relationship. We moved on in our life, whatever that is. But when somebody really is stuck on their ex, hating on their ex, talking about their ex, that sort of thing, I can understand it to a point, but then I don't. And I need us to look at it in like threefold. One, remember, we're hearing their narrative. We don't have the other person telling us their truth, so we're hearing one side. Okay. Two, abuse and abuse. Abuse is an interesting thing because the word abuse to me can be defined very differently for most people. The word abuse can be defined very differently. To me, abuse means physically punching or yelling and screaming and put downs and manipulation and hate talk. That's abuse. Abuse is not the same for everybody. Okay. And so sometimes when somebody says a word, we interpret it a certain way when in reality that interpretation is quite off base. Okay. So I want you to realize if somebody is really hating on their ex or making their ex's life a living hell, really be aware of that. Okay. And I've had clients, and I have one particular client comes to mind just recently. And he got into a relationship with this woman, and she was still going through a lot of court stuff with her ex, and she kept putting him through court. And then he was getting, she was setting it up where he would go to jail for 10, 15 days at a time. And the guy had to work, he needed to work, and he lost his job, all this stuff. It's like when you get through that, and I know that they paint a picture for you that, oh, this is okay that they're doing this, but I need you to really think about this because sometimes what is considered abuse isn't, and sometimes what is considered abuse is. Okay, I'm not advocating abuse, but I'm saying really know what's going on and start asking some questions. And it is interesting if you can meet everybody, which is very hard for most people to meet everybody involved in this previous saga. But if you can, that's also very interesting too. One of my biggest pieces of advice is, though, is that if somebody is going through this and they're dragging their ex through court and all this stuff, you may want to just step back. May need to wait for them to get through that. And maybe while they're getting through that, whatever that is, you might find someone else. My thing is that when somebody's going through this, we don't know. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they're just manipulative, controlling, and gaslighting this person and wanting to ruin their life. Maybe they're not. But really, if that's really going on, they don't really have time for another relationship. And you need to also think about the way that they treat other people and understand, would this be okay if they treated me like this? Because ultimately, if somebody is like that, they're like that across the board. It's not like they're just like that one time. They're like that across the board. So I need you to be aware of people's tendencies. And last but not least, when somebody is kind of showing up whenever they want to and not showing up when they don't. So basically, you hear from them occasionally, and then you don't hear from them. Even maybe they're standing you up or not showing up or they're having excuses or, I need you to be aware of that because sometimes we accept bad behavior from people. And a lot of times we're accepting bad behavior. And this is across the board, showing up, not showing up, projection, non projection, manipulation, whatever that is. But we need to realize and really look at it. Am I wanting this person in my life because I actually enjoy spending time with them and I like them in my life? I don't need them, or do I feel like I need someone in my life, somebody in my life because I feel lonely or I feel sad or I feel depressed? Because we need to really recognize that because if there's auxiliary reasons why, and it's not based on them, they will hurt us. Because basically what we're saying is, I'd rather not be lonely. I'll have this person in my life no matter what they are bringing to the table. So they could be bringing chaos and drama and a lot of bad stuff into our life, but we're accepting it because we don't want to have to deal with the other option, which is being on our own. And so I do want you to analyze that as you are in the dating situation because we do need to get over past relationships. That's something that I work with my clients with. If we did lose a spouse that passed away and we are a widower, we need to really look at a widow or a widower. We need to really process that and deal with that death. And before we actually start to move on, because that's going to be a problem too. We need to like really process the things in our life so that we don't bring the same pain or baggage back into our life with another person. Because remember, what we haven't figured out and excelled over, we will continue to have in our life. So it will come in different forms. And sometimes, you could go from, the simple grease fire on the oven to an insane, college station bonfire, right? So we're not trying to up the ante. We're trying to, reason with things, deal with these situations, deal with our baggage, deal with our situation, understand where it came from and get rid of it so that when we are connecting with people in our life, we're connecting with people that bring positivity, that bring health, a healthy, happy dynamic, not happy, but a healthy, positive dynamic instead of something that we might not want to have in our life. And so I know that many of you are on dating sites or friends are setting you up or you're trying to meet people organically at the store, at the gym. And I commend you. Continue to do that. But remember, we need to check our worries and fears at the door so that we know that when we're with somebody, we're with them because we actually like that person, not because they fulfill something that we're worried about or scared about. And that's so important because remember, I feel like we overlook the red flags when we need someone. We overlook it because we need someone. Oh, well, who cares that they're this or self centered or, they're a hoarder or they spend all their money or they're in debt and they spent all their money on their credit cards buying all this stuff. Who cares? I'm going to overlook this because I need this person or this person has money. I'm going to overlook these things or these sides of them. We need to realize that that's all going to come back to get us and bite us in the butt anyway. It's just a matter of time. So we're just kicking the can down the road. And it's better to deal with our own issues, which is what we deal with in my coaching. It's better to deal with our own stuff and process that stuff so we don't have to deal with it later. And then we can actually find someone that we can have a long-term relationship with instead of kicking down the can down the road and being in a relationship for a period of months or years and then having to do it all over again. If you haven't already, please go on YouTube and check out the videos on YouTube. YouTube, go to Life Coach Ashley Burgess, Life Coach Ashley Burgess. You'll find our channel. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed, please subscribe. And then let me know what kind of content you'd like to hear. If you're interested in working with me, go to ashleyburgess.com, Ashley, BERGES.com, Ashley with one Y. Burgess.com and just check on the coaching section. Click on the coaching section on the website and you can actually set up an appointment right there. You can also go to the contact page and send me any message or communication you'd like, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But in the meantime, if you're in this situation, be aware of the red flags. Don't sweep them under the rug. Be true to yourself and see the truth. And in the process, also be aware of any of those blind spots that you have and start analyzing that. Because if there's any fear or anxiety, we can bring the wrong type of person into our life just because we need something, not because we want them in our life. I hope that you've connected with this podcast. Please share this episode with friends and family that need to hear it. Hope you can tune into the Ashley Burgess podcast here in the future. And don't forget to live your true life.